I think right now there's a little bit more sizzle than steak, but I think next year what we're hearing, if people are going to fulfill their promises, you will be seeing 5G networks deploy supported by 5G devices. And the thing that I think we find exciting at Xperi is that is going to be a major proof point for us in terms of what are going to be some of the evolutions to our digital lives that we can hopefully participate in.
It's the last day of Mobile World Congress in Shanghai, and I have Matt Byrne here with me. He is the head of mobile sales for Xperi, and I want to talk to you about what are your impressions so far?
Wow, that's a really great question. So my main impression is that everybody is talking about 5G here.
Yes.
And it's either 5G, better connections, powering better experiences, which is going to create a smarter home, a smarter car, a smarter phone, a smarter life. Everything's smart and intelligent now. And I'm wondering, were we not smart and intelligent before now? And everybody was just dumb. So
dumb as a brick.
And I think one of the things that really people are trying to evangelize about 5G is that this device that we have in our pocket called the smartphone is intelligent enough through 5G to power your digital life, whether it's a smart city, a smart home, a smart car, smart safety, smart thermostats, the beat goes on. So that was one of the kind of major themes that I saw, but also a lot of the themes that were tied to 5G here this show was really about the transport networks that are going to be beginning to light up starting next year, rolling out with devices coincidentally that are going to create this great or hyper power this ecosystem that we're already living in day to day.
So do you think, because were you at CES this year?
Yes, I was.
So at CES, 5G was the major topic as well.
Yes.
And then in Barcelona, major topic there.
Right.
And then we come here to Shanghai, still a major topic.
Yes.
Is this being hyped up a little too much? Are we going to be disappointed? Because everyone's demanding, when is 5G going to happen? Some say later this year, some say next year, and some say never, okay?
Right. So I think right now there's a little bit more sizzle than steak. But I think next year, what we're hearing, if people are going to fulfill their promises, you will be seeing 5G networks deploy supported by 5G devices. And the thing that I think we find exciting at Xperi is that is going to be a major proof point for us in terms of what are going to be some of the evolutions to our digital lives that we can hopefully participate in. Because when you think about what are we participating in now, is everything needs to be smaller, more powerful, sound better, look better, cost less. And you look at phones where the proportion of screen size is getting larger versus the body. It creates some challenges for us as IP innovators to figure out how are we going to fit a lot of this power that we can deliver into smaller spaces without degrading any of the quality that we've learned to innovate through over the past 20 years.
Yeah, consumers are demanding, they want bigger screen, and they want smaller everything else on the hardware. But then they want the same quality, if not better, and faster.
Yes, and there's conversations that we had at CES in Barcelona and here at this show where we're talking to OEMs and they're saying, hey, my form factor's changing, my screen's getting bigger, but I still need to sound as good or better than the prior version of my model. How can you help me? Or, hey, I got a smaller cavity for where our camera and imaging IP is going to go. How can you help me? So those are some of the challenges that we're facing and embracing today as an organization to make sure that we can find ways to continue to innovate, drive the value that we have over the past 20 years, to continue to find ways to grow our business in meaningful ways.
So from a sales perspective, how do you speak to them about these challenges? So, you know, Xperi has a great suite of audio and imaging products. So, you know, with a bigger screen, they don't want that much on their devices. What do you say to them?
Well, the first thing we need to understand, is there a need and what's the problem behind the need? And then through that discovery process, we can begin to build a relationship that's built on trust and performance that allows us to find ways that we can mutually compromise and deliver the solutions that are going to meet their deadlines, to power the experiences that their customers expect.
But, you know, at the same time, you said something, is there a demand? Is there a demand for something like this, or are we just dictating people's demand?
I don't think we're dictating. I think, you know, one of the things that, I mean, if you ask any consumer, if you go and trial a phone and it takes what you believe is a bad picture, or you go to play back the music file or some kind of movie clip and the sound is poor, are you likely to buy that device?
Probably not.
Yes. So you need to, and you're probably going to be comparing it with the device that you already have in your possession.
Right.
So if you're not seeing that incremental improvement, what is the incentive for you to upgrade? And these are some of the proof points that these OEMs are dealing with, because if you are a certain customer of a certain brand, that brand wants to keep you part of the family. If you're not part of the family, they want to make you a new member of the family as quickly as possible.
Right, exactly.
So there's always that kind of push and pull that's going on in the marketplace, which for us as Xperi is important for us to continue to innovate, making sure that we're finding ways to meet these form factor challenges, but also deliver, you know, better audio, better imaging. Because if you think about a camera, it's something that everybody uses every day. And then 80% of the pictures that people take today include a human face.
Right.
And the last thing you want to be doing is taking pictures of yourselves or your family members, a loved one, where they don't look that great.
Right.
Or if you're capturing, or if you want to be entertained when you have a free moment on the train, or while you're waiting for a friend to show up, you want to be able to hear and be engaged with what is being presented to you media-wise. And if you fail to deliver on those promises, then we're failing to deliver as an organization. So that's something that we take a lot of pride in.
And there's even more challenges to that, because you have to appease the OEMs, but you also have to appease the customers, right? So it's you're kind of holding both of their hands and trying to say, okay, let's come to a mutual agreement on what we need, and then we will develop the technology to fulfill both of your needs.
Right, and sometimes that is incremental advancements to what we already have, or others, sometimes it's totally new, unique, and differentiated. Some of the things that, you know, we've recently enjoyed some success in the gaming headphone market, and now we're seeing that gaming console paradigm shift from console to handheld device. We've come out with some new novel technologies that blend well to deliver an immersive gaming experience. I think it also blends well to some of the trend changes, or at least VR changes that I saw year over year here at the show, where last year it was, hey, I can, you know, put on my VR head-mounted display and go and be a visitor in a virtual world. Well, now it's, hey, I'm going to put on my head-mounted display, and I'm not only going to go in and be a visitor in that virtual world, but I'm going to be participating in some sort of game in that virtual world.
Right, right.
So we think that bodes well for us to extend our gaming franchise to handsets, and we're seeing a lot of OEMs right now come out with handsets that are exclusively targeted towards gaming.
And what is the difference between those handsets?
Mainly what we're seeing is better graphics processors, an attempt to improve battery life, you know, same thing as your normal, you know, handset, you know, great screen quality, and of course audio performance needs to be top notch.
Now, this is something I noticed this year at Barcelona, was audio was, you know, everybody wanted better audio. And I did not see that last year, I did not see that the year before.
Right.
Why is audio all of a sudden a major demand for consumers?
Well, if you think about the last time you went to your local store to buy a phone, and you look at all the ways that the handsets are represented by that retailer on the shelf, if there wasn't name tags associated with those phones, it would pretty much look like those phones or devices were all coming from the same company.
Right.
So it is through camera, screen, battery life, audio, maybe there's some other functionality, digital wallets, those types of pieces and features that allow some of these brands to differentiate themselves versus others. Sometimes it could be a relighting or a background lighting capability when you take your selfie. Or it's the ability to take a 3D versus a 2D picture of, you know, your perfect sunset or your best friend or your favorite pet.
Right. So at something like Mobile World Congress, where there's a presence from bigger brands like Huawei and HTC are here, and there's some smaller brands here who are also trying to break into the market.
Right.
What is some advice you would give to them to differentiate themselves?
The advice we give to them is think about your basics, and then once you have your basic foundation, you can build yourself into a category killer from there. But if you try to go too far too fast, sometimes it ends up the story ends up not ending as positively as possible.
So that's almost opposite of what I would think you would say to smaller companies, which is go flashy. You know, get those gimmicks out there, get that PR and publicity. But you're saying get what you have and get it right.
Yes.
To the best quality that you have possible.
Yes.
And then approach the market that way.
Right. And then the other thing though is that if you come out with that something new and flashy, people are then going to be expecting you to follow it up shortly thereafter. And if you're a smaller player, you may not have the resources to capitalize on that momentum and come out with a very compelling or even better second act versus your first act. Exactly. So the question is that's a tough position to be in, and the marketplace has a few examples that aren't worth mentioning here where people have done well initially, haven't been able to follow it up with a positive second act, and they're no longer in business. You can also make, a great analogy is you look at some music artists where they have that great debut album. Yeah. They had all that energy.
One hit wonder.
Yeah, and it made them write all those really great lyrics. Yeah. But then everybody was expecting them to follow up on that first success very quickly with that second success. But they really didn't have the opportunity to go out there and live and experience enough to be able to create enough material for them to come out with that great next version of an album or a hit song. So sometimes we as consumers put a lot of pressure on these brands.
We're so unforgiving.
Yes, we have a very short attention, or our love affairs are short-lived in the tech space. So that's important for you to remember as an organization, that you need to focus on your basics day to day. Try to find ways to build value, solve problems, create long-term mutually beneficial relationships between yourselves and your customers, because those are the type of relationships that have true staying power, and then you can truly build a business off of.
Well, I mean, I think you gave some really good advice to some of these smaller companies trying to enter a bigger market like this, where I think, you can't be as product focused when you're trying to break in. Right. You have to be values focused. Yes. What do your products provide for the end consumer? Yes. And all of your whole suite of products after that have to feed into those values, and that's what keeps you going versus just going from product to product to product and reacting to the market.
Well, and there's that analogy in business where 80% of your business comes from 20% of your customers. Yeah. So you think about that small company analogy. If you have a very solid base of customers, those are ones that can help propel you forward to either retain that base and then also attract new, or just have a very successful business that appeals to a certain niche in the market. But if you're going to do that, you better make sure that you own that niche outright, and you've built your castle and it has a pretty big, wide, and deep moat around it. Yeah. So some bigger guy doesn't come along and say, it's my turn to own this.
Exactly.
Please step out of the way.
Get out of the way.
Yeah.
And for Xperi this year, what are some things we should be looking forward to?
Well, I touched on earlier some of our gaming franchise innovation around the audio space. I think you'll see some of that begin to cross over from headphones into handsets and gaming PC. And we're highlighting some of those experiences here now. I think what you're also seeing when it comes to the mixed reality, XR, AR space, is that you're going to see, when you think about that space, it's really about sight and sound, and I call it eyes, ears, and hands. So you think about it, you have your head-mounted display, you're tracking or visiting scenes with your eyes, you're enveloped in an immersive experience with surround sound, and your hands are helping to guide you through that experience. Well, I think we're finding ways to make sure that we continue to innovate around the eyes and deliver a great experience there. And of course, we're always looking to find ways to deliver the most immersive experience that we can with audio. On the hands, we're going to leave that to other folks in the space to figure out. We got enough on our plate with the eyes and ears.
And here's a very important question for you, Matt. What are you going to do after you leave Shanghai?
What am I going to do after Shanghai? I'm going to make sure that we get on some conference calls with some of the customers that we met with here today, and make sure that we follow through on the next steps that we discussed here at the show.
Oh, so no sleep. Sleep is not on the agenda.
Well, that's what the plane ride's for.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.